But moving on to the freeze techniques, one of the issues we run into with a lot of our clients is they have or may have a taxable estate, and they are somewhat limited in their ability to use gift exemption, or they're better off with low basis assets, owning assets, because as long as we have the step up in basis, there's a huge income tax benefit. So then when we look into the strategies to try to prevent growth in an estate, we move into the estate freeze techniques. And the way to think about it is, once you have a federally taxable estate, 50 cents of every dollar that you earn at that point in your life, you're really leaving to the government when you die. 40% to the federal government. There's a 16% Maryland tax. Once you kind of do a deduction back and forth, it's about half. So in essence, if you're in a federally taxable estate situation, earning money is a 50 cent to the dollar game, because the government is your half beneficiary moving forward. So what we look at, and we love our acronyms when we freeze estates, we look at what are known as GRATs, CUPRTs, SLATs, and sales to intentionally defective grantor trusts. So in very brief, none of these can be discussed in any detail in a presentation like this. But in short, these all serve a very specific purpose, which is to move assets to the next generation in a minimal gift tax hitting way, for lack of a better word, and allowing growth and future growth of assets to move to the next generation while keeping your estate basically frozen at its current level. And I'll use as an example, again, a GRAT. GRAT stands for Grantor Retained Annuity Trust. And the basic structure works that if you put $1 million into a GRAT and you held it for a period of 5 years, every year for that 5-year period, you as the grantor would take back about $200,000. It's subject to a little bit of an increase beyond that, and there's some things you can do. But in essence, over a 5-year period, you would get your whole $1 million back, plus a small amount of interest, which is based on a federal rate. If the asset grows at 7 or 8% a year over that 5-year period, all of that growth has gone to the next generation. We usually structure that in the recipient being a children's trust or a grandchildren's trust. And by doing that, you have frozen your estate basically at that $1 million you gave away. There's zero gift tax exemption used, so you have your full exemption. And again, over a period of years, you can siphon off your growing estate to the next generation without impacting any of your exemptions that you have when you die. So that's an example. Qualified Personal Residence Trust, which is the CUPRT, is a very similar animal, which you can do with your primary residence or with a vacation home, where again, you gift the assets to the next generation and the sum of the parts are worth less than the whole. And by doing delayed gratification to the next generation, if you've got $1 million beach house, it may be a $600,000 gift as an example to shift those assets. And then there are other things you can do after it's been transferred to rent the property back from your children and shift even more money to the next generation. So a sale to an intentionally defective grantor trust is basically a kind of like a GRAT light. It's a way to transfer an asset to the next generation and take back a note, so that in essence you're limiting your income growth or your asset growth by the value of the note. So and a SLAT, lastly, is a spousal access trust. That's a way to structure assets to the next generation, but have the ability for your spouse to receive back interest in the trust if there were ever a reason that you needed to get that money back at your generational level. So all of these techniques are designed to say, I have a taxable estate. Every dollar of growth is going to be 50% going out the window at this point. How do I keep my estate from growing too fast and shift assets very efficiently to the next generation? And we use these strategies to, and these also fall out of favor because of the increased income tax, estate tax exemptions. And if the exemption drops again, I think we're going to see a resurgence of these tools and techniques to prevent all of your estate growth from being divided equally between your family and the government.